beautiful day to be outside touching grass. Wait a minute, I got a YouTube comment. Let's see what it is. That's interesting. Looks like it's a comment from George. Start with Miles Mayhem. Can I start with Miles Mayhem? I mean, I've always wanted to talk about M.A.S.K on the show, but I never have. I just feel like it's too daunting. But maybe the time is right. How do I start with Miles Mayhem? I got it! To the laundry room! Hello, fellow dorks and dorkettes, and welcome to Nostalgia Syndrome. My name is Rob, and in this episode, we will be talking about the villainous vehicles of the 80s. Or, in other terms, rad rides of the 80s, just with a villainous spin to celebrate the month of mayhem here at the channel. Now, I was planning just a normal rad rides with villainous vehicles until I got this comment. This is a comment from viewer George, who also reached out to me on Instagram to say he loves the channel. So, thank you very much, George. So, start with Miles Mayhem. It took me a minute to wrap my brain around it because I have always wanted to talk about M.A.S.K and V.E.N.O.M in this case, but I've always been a little scared, a little apprehensive, because to me, M.A.S.K is one of those top-tier toy lines of the 80s, and I want to do it justice. I want to find a perfect outlet to talk about these awesome toys. Now, mind you, I did not have many of them growing up, but the ones that I did have just live in a awesome, nostalgic cocoon in my brain of awesomeness. Anyway, before we get started, let's just drop a couple quick facts about M.A.S.K. M.A.S.K, the toy line, was released by Kenner in 1985, and it had 4 waves that included everything from adventure packs, action figure packs, play sets, and of course, vehicles. Now, since this is rad rides, or villainous vehicles in this case, let's focus on the vehicles. There were a total of 39 vehicles. 3 of them, I say, are playsets, but Kenner themselves put them in the vehicles category. So, for the sake of argument, we will also put them in that category. Out of those 39, 25 of them were M.A.S.K vehicles, and 14 of them were V.E.N.O.M vehicles. Now, you may be asking yourself, what does M.A.S.K stand for? It stands for Mobile Armored Strike Command. Yeah, don't ask. And what does V.E.N.O.M stand for? Well, a better acronym, that's for sure. It stands for Vicious Evil Network of Mayhem, which makes sense because Miles Mayhem was the leader of V.E.N.O.M. And on the behest of George, we'll start there with Miles Mayhem. Our first villainous vehicle from V.E.N.O.M is Miles Mayhem's vehicle of choice, Switchblade, which was released in the first wave in 1985. Now, I guess I should have explained in the upfront what the whole gist of M.A.S.K is. Well, M.A.S.K is about vehicles that have 2 different forms. One is a run-of-the-mill form, and the other is a more souped-up, battle-ready form. And in some cases, entirely different vehicles. In this case, with Switchblade, it begins with a military-grade helicopter, a la Airwolf or Blue Thunder. And when it transforms, its propellers tuck away, its runners retract up into its body, and it becomes a fighter jet. Now, like I said, the pilot of Switchblade is Miles the Wolf Mayhem, and his mask, Viper. I guess I should have also included the whole mask thing. Masks are highly advanced technology that are housed in masks that go over the various characters' heads, and each one of them houses an awesome power. Now, Viper's power was that it could spit out a corrosive acid. Fitting, yes. But with a nickname like the Wolf, it's kind of odd that they went with a whole snake motif. I guess they're taking a page out of Cobra's playbook. Our next vehicle comes from the third wave of M.A.S.K, and it was released in 1987. This is the Iguana. Now, the Iguana was an ATV, a pretty typical four-wheeler that could change into a buzzsaw-wielding vehicle of destruction. Now, the driver of the Iguana was Lester the Lizard Sludge. And you just know with a last name of Sludge that he is up to some dirty business. And he accomplishes that with his mask, the Mudslinger, which does exactly that. It can launch volleys of mud out of it. Now, this was actually one that I had because I was able to get a lot of the more smaller vehicles, and I loved it. I wish I still had my hands on it, but unfortunately I don't. But I just remember having so much fun with the buzzsaw that would come out of the front. And it didn't matter the size of the figure, that was a pretty scary weapon to have when facing any of your action figures in the Toy Time Universe battlegrounds. Our next Villainous V.E.N.O.M vehicle comes from the first wave again, and this is the Piranha, which is an awesome motorcycle with sidecar. Now, for some reason, purple is not my favorite color, but for some reason on toys, it just seems to pop. Like my love for the Techno Viper from G.I. Joe. Anyway, what the Piranha was capable of was being a motorcycle, but you could jump into the sidecar and it would be a single occupant submarine. Now, the driver of the Piranha was Sly Wrecker Rax. And this dude looks like your typical biker-esque dude. He would have fit perfectly with the Dreadnoks if the figure was, of course, a little bit bigger. Anyway, Sly's mask was the Stiletto, and it had the capability of shooting short, armor-piercing bursts from its chest plate. Since he was included in the first wave, he was a standout villain in the cartoon series, and he pretty much appeared in every episode. Citation needed. But he was in a lot of them. My memories of the show, he was always somewhere in the mix. Again, this is one that I didn't have as a kid, but I was lucky enough to stumble upon the submarine portion, the sidecar, at a flea market, and I picked it up for like $2. So I was happy enough just to have that. One day, maybe I'll get the bike and Sly to go with it and have a full set.
Bugs Bunny and the Roadrunner will return after these messages.
An incredible secret is revealed. When innocent-looking vehicles and ordinary men become an awesome fighting team. It's the secret of M.A.S.K, where illusion is the ultimate weapon. Piranha's getting away with the laser blueprints.
Stop them!
Condors,
Ready for takeoff.
M.A.S.K vehicles in place at each sold separately with action figures.
I'll let him off at the river.
But Gator's ready, and he never gives up.
Goodbye, you're through.
M.A.S.K, where illusion is the ultimate weapon.
Ah!
Our next vehicle in the V.E.N.O.M arsenal is the Stinger. And the Stinger was an orange Pontiac GTO. Now, I think this is a little side note that has been lost to time due to different copyright and licensing issues. But back in the day, they just flat out called out what vehicle they were using. Now, I don't know if Kenner, paid royalties to these vehicle or car companies, but I think it's something that's kind of missing nowadays because, yeah, everyone's out to get that green and they'll rip off just a toy company to do it. Anyway, enough of that. The Stinger, like I said, was an orange Pontiac GTO, and it arrived in the second wave of M.A.S.K figures in 1986. Now, this is a sleek and awesome car, hands down, but what it turns into is pretty darn awesome in its own right. And what it would transform into is a armored tank, if you will, with kind of like a scorpion motif with the arm that comes out of the back. Hence the name Stinger, I guess. Anyway, now this is a neat vehicle in both of its transformations, which honestly, all these vehicles are awesome. But, I mean, some of them are kind of a reach, like a sidecar that turns into just a one-man submarine. That's not super useful. Super cool. Anyway, the driver of the Stinger was Bruno Mad Dog Shepard, and his mask had the capability of Magna Beam, which gave him the powers of magnetism. He could repel, attract, or rip apart anything made of metal, except aluminum. But you know what I mean. Our final Villainous V.E.N.O.M vehicle is also the final V.E.N.O.M vehicle that was released in the first wave in 1985, and that is the Jackhammer. Now, the Jackhammer was a black Ford Bronco. Good thing it wasn't a white Ford Bronco, if you know what I mean. Anyway, the Jackhammer could transform into an assault vehicle. Its grill would drop down, a gun would come out, and its back section would lift up to be a turret that the driver, Cliff Blaster Dagger, could man. It's a very simplistic design, but still very awesome. I mean, the M.A.S.K toy line was classic no matter how you cut it. But anyway, Cliff Dagger's M.A.S.K torch was pretty simplistic as well because it was just a flamethrower. I mean, it's pretty darn effective, so it doesn't matter how fancy it is when you're catching things on fire. But I have to say, it is definitely a crime that there were not more V.E.N.O.M vehicles released in any of the waves. They were so hero heavy. And what makes a good hero a good villain? So to have the heroes just outnumber the villains as much as they do by almost double, it just seems to deflate the villain status of Venom. I mean, it's a bummer. But there's still plenty more V.E.N.O.M vehicles and M.A.S.K vehicles to talk about in the future, and I plan to do so. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for stopping by and checking out the first episode in our Mayhem Month here at the channel. And I also want to give a special shout out again to George for his recommendation to start with Miles Mayhem. I apologize for not going into a lot of details about the M.A.S.K toy line, the M.A.S.K cartoon, the M.A.S.K comic book, or these awesome V.E.N.O.M vehicles. Believe me, in the future I will give more TLC to this awesome toy line. And speaking of TLC for this toy line, Hasbro, come on, resurrect M.A.S.K. You can keep it the same smaller size or upscale it to 3 3/4, and it could fit perfectly in the G.I. Joe universe. I mean, they did that with the Matt Tracker figure twice. They actually made 2 different Matt Trackers, and both of them were pretty cool. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you got something to say, please leave a comment. I love reading them, and I love getting back to everyone. And if you're new around here and you enjoyed this or any of the episodes that YouTube is recommending down here, please hit subscribe. And if you hit that little bell icon, you'll be notified whenever there's a new episode. So anyway, until next time, thank you for watching. Keep being rad and stay dorky.